The reef aquarium industry loves stomatellas, but you'd be hard pressed to find some real hardcore science on them.
When we were here last time, I don't even think we had bottles for the reef genetics yet.
No.
I hope you washed your hands.
I always wash my hands. I always sterilize them too.
Hey Reef Builders, it is Remy back here at Top Shelf Aquatics, and last time we were here we talked with Taras all about everything phyto, all the small critters. Well, there's some changes that have happened.
Oh, yeah.
There's some new stuff that has happened, and it seems that Taras is expanding to an entirely new building, which we will get to in this video. But Taras, how you doing?
Pleasure.
Good to see you again.
Great to see you again.
So let's start here with this beautiful mosaic of phyto here, and maybe anything that's changed, or is this the same?
Well, we are both staying the same and expanding in new directions. So, staying the same as in we are still culturing the three main species of phyto I initially selected when starting the Reef Genetics line. We have our T. isocryces lutea, our Rhodomonas salina, our Tetraselmis chuai, and what stayed the same is that we are growing these things as high value living live feeds. What might be changing in the future a little bit is, well, we've had so much demand for this product that I'll have to expand my production so that we can increase production while at the same time having the same consistency and density. But everything I've just described is utilizing microalgae as a live feed source.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing some more of that, but also with a twist, is that we're going to be directly aquaculturing a few new critters, especially things that have larval states. I really want to be messing around with some oysters, maybe even some sea urchins. So, as opposed to just feeding this to copepods and feeding it to the tanks, the production tanks at large, we're actually going to be experimenting with directly dosing specific concentrations of these three algae species to larvae to try and get them actually growing, on a whole scale there.
Yeah. When we were here last time, I don't even think we had bottles for the Reef Genetics yet.
No, we were still in our infancy.
The graphics weren't done, and now, like you said, you're at the point where this is such a popular product that you've got to expand, right?
I'm very lucky. We could have either had the project start up and crashed and burned, but now we're enjoying relatively consistent sales, and I have an excuse, let alone a justification, to expand my production, not only for expanding the production of these three species, but we're very excited to be offering more in the future.
Okay.
So I won't get too specific, but two that I definitely will mention is we're going to be messing around with beneficial diatoms, so some things that I worked with in the oyster hatchery days, some things like Catostris and the like that have really good nutritional profiles and will really help out with those breeding projects. But we're also going to be messing with some zooxanthellae.
Oh.
That's right, Symbiodinium. So we're going to be escaping the realm of phyto as a live feed altogether, perhaps. And call me Icarus, but I want to get a little closer to the sun when it comes to actually taking some of our beautiful coral specimens, extracting their zooxanthellae, and it's going to take me time, but potentially coming up with ways to redeploy that zooxanthellae after it's been cultured in a vat like this, and use it as a therapeutic agent.
Well, last time we were here, you had a whole copepod culture going on. How has that evolved? Do you want to go take a look?
Let's go take it out.
All right.
So here's what we see right now. It's kind of a good representation of what I've been working with in general up until this point. I like to refer to it as the hobbyist setup. Now, when it comes to a 5-gallon bucket, you'll notice these aren't aerated. You're essentially able to simulate the strict environment of where these copepods come from in the wild. Most of what we grow, either a cyclopoid copepod like Apocyclops, or a harpacticoid copepod, think the Tisbe venumiensis or the Tigriopus californicus, these are essentially organisms that are living in lagoons, tide pools. We're using them in the reef tank as cleaning crew agents, but when we want them to have extremely high densities, we're essentially simulating a relatively stagnant environment filled with good algae and minimalized flow. But this obviously has scaled limits. Now our demands are coming in. We are selling copepods, and they need to be consistently dense, dark bottles with nice females with big honking egg sacs. So we'll be escaping this model, and with the new space, we're gonna be having just modified, more simpler versions of it, where I'll get to try out some new subtleties that I really want to embrace.
Yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from now with feeling like you're just kind of crammed in different spots of the farm, right?
Very much so. I feel like
Taras gets this shelf.
Oh, it feels like island hopping those days.
Yeah.
The second one's vacant. I occupy. I build what I can and hold on to it for as long as I can. If we just stop for a second, this present moment, doesn't it make all this stuff more precious? Doesn't it make any of these tangs more precious knowing the journey it made, the odyssey it took? That thing was Odysseus.
Yeah.
It traveled from a tiny egg. All of its brethren are dead, just by design. They wouldn't come out that small otherwise.
Yeah.
And yet they persisted. To have that magic, that transcending nutritional accumulation to the point where you can have microalgae make a compound, a precious nutritious compound, the great communicators, the copepods, translate that, and because of that, we can have cloudy water turn into urchins and four and shoulder tangs and Goliath grouper. And it's a little tiny shred of that magic that I think we're capturing in the reef aquarium industry here just by having tanks, and that we're trying to harness, certainly redeploy and have a renaissance with when it comes to breeding all these marine critters de novo.
Yeah, man, powerful stuff with Taras. Let's move on to your next island.
Now we'll be moving on, yeah.
So you had mentioned that you were doing something pretty interesting in this tank here. We've seen saltwater mollies or mollies that have transitioned to saltwater, but there's also other stuff going on in here.
Yes. Its main purpose is to hold our mollies before market. But I like this tank for so many more reasons than that. Things do not grow best in isolation. Things grow best in the context of its own ecology. So what we're trying to do here is make a pastoral, something which is not quite a farm, a bunch of cattle in a pen, and it's not the wild, it's not the open forest, it's something in the middle, something that humans curate to create a new ecosystem that not only produces the market species, in this case the mollies, but produces several market species. The mollies, amphipods, stomatellas, collinistas, some days even sea cucumbers will spawn in this tank. And I have found that the more I try and grow one thing in one tank in isolation, the more I bash my head up against the glass and I fail and I fail. And long story short, what I found is that we can produce partnerships, relationships, polycultures, where you can grow more mollies, more stomatellas, more amphipods by growing them with mollies, by growing them with stomatellas, than you could in isolation.
Well, we can tell how much you're spread out here. You got polyculturing, the copepods, the phyto up front. But we've been alluding to this expansion this entire time during this video, so what do you say we go over there and check it out?
I'd love nothing more, Remy.
All right.
Let's go.
Let's go. So Ross.
Visitors? I wasn't expecting visitors.
I hope you washed your hands.
I always wash my hands. I always sterilize them too.
It's like we just saw each other. I don't know, and now we're here. Weird time travel kind of stuff. But this is the new facility, right?
Of course, yes.
We are very much in a construction phase.
Yes.
Correct? But you're gonna be doing a whole lot of cool stuff here. Do you wanna take us on a little bit of a tour?
I would love nothing more.
All right.
Welcome to my little Persepolis here, our little transformative section, our little bud of paradise growing here on the east bank of Lake Underhill in Orlando, Florida. It used to be a wonderful retail facility that we enjoyed here in town.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's no longer that, but fortunately, is been purchased and is being reborn anew. Phoenix rising from the flames.
Let's start back here and you can kind of show me what the plan is.
Well, welcome. Again, pardon our growing pains, but the majority of our time here has been taking this facility and basically doing and checking off all the major points when it comes to making a good aquaculture facility. You know, what are some things that you need in any fish room? You're keeping fresh water, keeping reptiles, you're keeping a reef. Well, you want temperature control.
Yeah.
That's something that was a little bit difficult for me at the old facility. We had the algae out front, you know, we had a lot of tourists coming in and out, trucks, and some days we were opening the building out. We could be anywhere from 65 all the way to 90 degrees. So one of the favorite things I have here is that this whole west wing of the building will be environmentally controlled, not only as the whole of the building, but even down to the individual rooms. This is gonna be really fun for me because, as you know, I'm constantly ranting about how every phytoplankton cell we grow here is essentially a little tiny factory. We're trying to keep everything nice and stable for that factory so it can make exactly what we want, be the color we want, the consistency we want, and it can clone itself and be consistent over time.
Well, you've got doors.
Doors are everything. So not only do we have environmental control, but we actually have biological control now. A lot of my projects were facing each other. They were facing other tanks. They were not necessarily getting splattered on, but it's quite difficult, you understand. You have to keep all these things like islands separated. Yeah. Otherwise, you'll end up with one big homogenized continent. So now that we have the separate rooms, we'll be able to keep some of our more fragile species, such as the T. isochryses and the rhodomonas, well away from some of our more aggressive and powerful microalgae species, like our green tetraselmis.
Obviously the water production, but then just some workspace that you don't have now, right?
Oh, yes, exactly. So I think we'll start over here. It's quite best. Water. Water is going to be the heart of your facility. It is going to define what your facility is and what you can do. Now, I think one of the great magical things that I get the opportunity with now is that I'm going to be able to translate everything I learned from working at the TSA farm. And we're going to be taking Orlando municipal water, stripping it with our RO system, and then reconstituting it with various salts, mostly Red Sea. And this will allow me to kind of enjoy all this. It feels like fighting with the weights off once you're trying to grow microalgae without worrying about bringing in a fleet of mayflowers full of bacteria every single time.
Yeah, that's this is going to give you a lot of that control as well. And you said you had some spots over here for maybe some workspaces.
So this is going to be all for the berghia for the most part. We're going to have a few berghia production systems and a few nursery systems put in. But something else that's important, if you're trying to have a workshop at home, a good functioning fish room, or if you're trying to have a functioning, like oiled, greased aquaculture facility, you need to have clean workspaces. You need to have the ability to have a clear, open space to think, to be able to establish projects, give them their own space, and then to be able to check in on those projects till either success or some natural end is reached.
I cannot wait to see this when it's all done.
Oh, I can't wait.
There's a whole nother room over here, right?
Yes. So one of the things, we'll walk by this small office they have going for me. I'm very excited about that. It's a nice extra workspace to be able to think. But here we see that the old core of the old retail facility of Sea in the City, we've left mostly intact. That's because all these different systems, instead of spending the labor to smash all this plumbing and clear it out, all these systems could potentially be reclaimed. Now, until that, there's something we definitely want to put in this space, or a technique that we definitely know that won't apply with this particular tank, I think it's far more useful to see what can be recycled. Even down to the older systems that we've kept actually running with fish and corals and different creatures in there. We want to maintain that microbiome. There could be some very valuable bacteria and potential inside these tanks that we don't necessarily want to wipe out and assume we can just restart. Some of these tanks are years old. A good example is just this little juvenile aptasia system I've set up out of one of these middle production tanks where I've dosed it with a bunch of wild aptasia. You can see here rampant Stomatella production going.
Yeah.
Which is extremely nice for someone like me to see, where we're going to be focusing on breeding these at a larger scale intentionally, but to know that we already have a microbiome in there that's going to have them not only eat, but reproduce through the larval stage successfully is nice. So our berghia production is one of the things here that which really does drive a lot of the capital investment I've been able to enjoy in this facility. So we really want to make sure that we can fortify and expand that berghia production in the future. And frankly, that comes with a lot of R&D and a lot of caring for aptasia.
Yeah.
But what we can produce here are Stomatellas, micro brittle stars, crocus snails, urchins. We can produce all these organisms which are commonly just taken from wild ecosystems, thrown into the tank. Hopefully they'll have a taste and a diet for whatever pest algae we want to get rid of. And then eventually they live out their lifespans and are no more. Here, we're very excited to be able to embrace, value, and really research. Very few of these organisms are even understood by the scientific community. The reef aquarium industry loves Stomatellas, but you'd be hard pressed to find some real hardcore science on them. We are 100 miles west of the Atlantic Ocean. We're over 100 miles east of the Gulf of Mexico, and yet we will be growing organisms that are from the Indo-Pacific, the Caribbean, the Red Sea. We will be growing them here, de novo, on dry Orlando Earth, and there I see power. And wherever the need may arise, no matter what storms may come, there can be, through a facility such as this and others, the infinite potential for every landlocked facility to be able to produce marine organisms for the reef aquarium industry and any other use we may have for them. We can turn saltwater organisms. They can appear here, where before there would be just grass and kettle ponds. I think there's magic and power to that, and in my opinion, it's one of the greatest things the reef aquarium industry can do, is inspire this marching progress forward when it comes to bringing everything we know and understand with marine life and bringing that on land.
Yeah.
Creation, Genesis.
I love it. Well, Taras, the Florida Man needed a good headline, and I think we got it here today. So appreciate your time.
Of course,
Thanks for showing us around.
Pleasure.
And looking forward to coming back.
You're welcome anytime.